Good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay. I signed up for yesterday, but I got busy with something, so I thought I'd try you today and see if it worked out.
Perfect. Perfect that it works out.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi. Hi, Suzanne.
hey, hey, Karen.
Hi, Elon.
Hi, Elon. I'm trying to get my camera up again.
Hey,
Marlene.
Elise.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Nanette. Thank you.
This is nice. So I'm in my wife's clinic.
What does your wife do?
She's a psychologist.
Oh, right, right.
So it's her
Are
clinic.
you there as a patient or a
No, as a patient, it's like she can say she donated at home. She does my work at home. Constantly needs upkeep, this guy.
So what time is it in Israel?
It's 6 p.m. Nice time.
Okay.
Better than 4 a.m.
Yeah,
or 2 a.m.
trying also, I try to spread out the times a little bit, also to get a sense of what's better for people. What times will have more draw. I didn't know how it will work, so I tried to spread it around. Okay.
This is a little harder for me. Still working. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, so taking off an hour and a half of my work day.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. I'm yeah.
We have to leave at 9 for a doctor's appointment.
You see? Okay, that's something I've learned about this hour.
Yeah, I don't work on Tuesdays, so I'm able to do it. And I don't know how Rick has been creating the time, but he's figured it out somehow.
Yeah, but
So
Rick has some sort of superhuman capacity of multitasking. Because I saw him on the computer as well at the same time that he was watching. I could see for moments that he was writing prescriptions or something. He doesn't move, but you can just see a tiny bit of like, this is his fingers moving.
yeah,
I'm super impressed.
might be a little early for Anthony.
Yeah. What's he doing now?
He's a contractor. He's programming blockchain programming.
Programming, launching, programming.
Yes. So blockchain is what he programs in.
Yeah.
So the stuff is for crypto, but he doesn't do crypto. Not crypto. But yeah, you can ask him. He'll explain it better.
Today I went for a walk with my daughter, and there was a graffiti. Who is Takashi Nakamoto? You know this?
No.
Takashi Nakamoto is supposed to be the guy who invented blockchain, but nobody knows who he is, who's the person. And people kind of grabbed onto this Japanese character. He's kind of a half of a nobody, a professor in a small university, and everybody's decided he's the dude.
Yeah.
So we're talking about him today.
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, Takashi Nakamoto.
Yeah.
So,
My mom is visiting, so I'm on her iPad. So she's gonna join in a minute.
perfect.
To be on and off screen periodically as I put some breakfast together here.
Perfect. Okay, I'll start off. I'll start. Do you know what? Before I actually physically start to share, let's see. The whole idea of this series was to do 3 sessions, right? And it's a cumulative effort, one on top of the other, one's adding to that. We started with Gaza, trying to understand who the people are and how their world affects decisions they make. We tried to make a distinction between Gaza and Hamas, between an organization and a population that might support it because they have no other real options in their world. And then we talked about Israel, and we tried to explain how Israel acted in the past, how it changed under Bibi's prime ministership for about 16 years, and the situation we're in today. And today, what I want to do is try to look at a larger picture. A larger picture can be physically larger in space. What are the interests in the people around us, and how does that affect what's happening? Also in time. And there are things that over time change very dramatically. We've had a conversation not long ago with my kids and my children's cousins. Were over, and we had a conversation about the Holocaust. And at some point, when we were having a conversation about the Holocaust, my daughter kind of proudly said to her cousins, yeah, but my dad, meaning me, his dad was a Holocaust survivor. Kind of taking a bit of credit for that historical moment, in a sense, trying to say that whatever she's going to say next has more validity, which is fine as a way to act, right? I have no big problem with that. But it made me think about the idea that today kids are so removed from the Holocaust, the society is so removed from the Holocaust. Things change so much. It's such a foreign idea. That's time having its effect. If you delve into the Holocaust, it can break you. If you truly try to understand the horrors that happened there, it's an incredible emotional burden because you can transport yourself. But once you're back in 2023, you're slightly removed. And things change like that. I started off by kind of offering the idea of David and Goliath and how it kind of flipped between Israel and Palestine. Once everybody was clear for everybody in the world, Israel is David. Israel is the small, we're the weak, we're the ones who in the end are right, and the Arab nations are the Goliath. And to be absolutely honest, that's true. Before 1948, Israel was tiny. And even for the first decades, Israel was very small and very scared, very David. Today, the story is different. It's switched. In the world's view, I don't say specifically every person, but in general, in the world's view, it's switched. Israel is no longer that tiny little David. We're the strong ones. We're the Goliath, and the other side is the David. In the end, both of these stories are not true. That's the beauty of a metaphor. A metaphor takes a complex thing and puts it into a small, one bite size, right? And we'll try and look if there's other metaphors as well that could work on this situation, something different. So these are a couple of ideas I'm throwing out. Let's start with sharing the screen. Here. Okay. There's an idea that I like a lot called the Black Swan. The Black Swan idea, the Black Swan event. So I Googled Black Swan, and this is the first thing I found. So I said I'll have to add it. If you Google Black Swan, you get Jim Carrey and SNL doing a parody of a black swan. Anyway, this is more what I wanted. Black swan. Today, if I want to say something is unimaginable, this thing is extremely hard to believe it will happen, I could easily say that thing will happen when pigs learn to fly. It's interesting, it's funny, why do we choose pigs and flying? But we understand that that's an impossibility. That's what it means. In the ancient world, if you would go back to Rome, they had a saying for the same type of situation, something that's unimaginable, that can't happen. And they said, it would be as if you'd be standing and a black swan flies above your head. There are absolutely no black swans in Europe, in North Africa, in Asia. Black swans do not exist. Swans are all white. And within the Roman world, in the world of logic, if you want to say something is, you can say it's as white as a swan. There's no exclusion to that fact. 1697, a British dude found himself in Australia and suddenly looks above his head and a black swan is flying over. Okay? Couldn't expect it, couldn't imagine that. It's as if a pig would be flying now. A black swan event is one of those events in history that you generally cannot expect. It is so wild in its parameters. 9/11 was a black swan event. You couldn't imagine before 9/11 that there would be a small militant terrorist organization in the Middle East that could organize planes to fly into the World Trade Center. It just couldn't be imagined. Black swan events are those types. So black swan events can be negative in a sense, and they're usually very cut. It's a moment that a negative thing happened that you couldn't expect, right? In a sense, the subprime financial collapse. Nobody expected it. It just bang. But black swan events can be also positive. France and Russia go to war in 1870. France and Germany go to war in 1870, the Franco-Prussian War. They go to war in the beginning of the 20th century over islands in the Caribbean. Then there is the First World War. Then there's the Second World War. There's no worse enemies in Europe than France and Germany. And today they're the best friends, the strongest partners in Europe. They're the backbone of the European Union. You could not expect it. In a sense, that's a black swan event. After the Second World War, after the war in Korea, after Vietnam, after so many events, a Republican president gets on a plane and flies to China and meets Mao. What? You couldn't expect that before Nixon was elected. It just wasn't a possibility. Same thing was Jimmy Carter bringing the two worst enemies, Israel and Egypt, together and creating a peace deal. Right? 11th of November, 1989, people wake up and there's no more Berlin Wall, which was such a dominant fact in the world, the split between East and West. Black swan event. Nelson Mandela, freed out of jail after 27 years, starts back his political party, wins elections, black swan event. So there's lots of black swan events if you're looking at history. If you're looking at history, suddenly they're not that surprising. They're not that surprising. Things do change many times pretty quickly. And that's a proposition I'm going to throw out and kind of look back at as we are going through this session. And this is what history gives you, a overlook, and suddenly you can see changes that in your day look as if they're monumental, but once you give them time, they fit into the story very well. This works very strongly within the Israel-Palestine, Israel-Arab relationship space. If we look at the black swan events in the Israel-Arab relationship space, we'll find tons of them. And they work on some sort of formula. In the formula, Israel has an idea of itself as very small and weak. That's Israel in 1948. Barely succeeded in surviving the War of Independence. I mean, truly, there were moments it was very hairy if it will succeed. And then it felt very small and attacked for a very long while until 1967, the Six-Day War. And Israel, for the first time in its modern history, became the strong one, the dominant one. And that's very important in Israeli kind of self-understanding. From a position where you're strong, you can't imagine giving up anything because you don't need to, you're strong. What happens in the dynamic is after 1967, the Six-Day War, when Israel takes over Jerusalem, the West Bank, the Sinai, Gaza, Golan Heights, all of these things, Israel feels very strong, and the Yom Kippur War happens 6 years later. The Arab nations attack. Israel, again, a very bloody war, ended up with the changing of all the military command and the prime minister. Was in our view, a great defeat. That brought Israel back down. And then we have 6 years later, 1979 Camp David Accords. That's Jimmy Carter bringing together Egypt and Israel into a peace treaty. Suddenly, Israel doesn't feel that strong, and it's gone lower. Its population demands not to go back to a situation that is so hairy again. So suddenly there's political space. The government gets political power that it can expend on doing something that at the basic level nobody wants, giving up anything. And on the other hand, the other side, the Arab side, suddenly feels strong because it just won something versus Israel, and it no longer needs to demand everything. It allows it to demand less. And that's an elastic moment in history which allows diplomacy to make great changes, such as the peace. If we go to point number 4, in 1987, the first Intifada starts on the 9th of December, runs till 1991. A lot of hoo-ha, people being hurt, mainly in the West Bank and Gaza, Palestinian uprising against Israeli rule through the occupied territories. 1991 it ends. By 1993, we have the Oslo Accords. That's Bill Clinton, Yitzhak Rabin, and Yasser Arafat. The first agreement with Palestinians. 1 year later, the Jordanians join in as well. Israel's longest border. Okay? 2001, the second Intifada. Again, the Palestinians uprise against Israeli occupation. This time it happens mainly within Israel, attacking a lot of civilians. And in 2005, Israel's government disengages from Gaza, has enough political will to give concessions to the other side. Benjamin Netanyahu isn't stupid. He has a lot of faults. But this isn't something that I invented. This is a well-known way of understanding Israeli-Arab relations in the Middle East. And Bibi wanted to break this cycle. He said to himself, I don't go out to war. And throughout 16 years of his prime ministership, Israel has not gone out to any large-scale war. The largest scale operation that happened was in that hiatus between Bibi being prime minister in 96 till coming back to power in 2009. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't like war. He doesn't want Israel to go out and expand in that way. And he doesn't want to make any concessions. The next thing that needs to have concessions around is the West Bank. And he changes the situation. Give the Hamas enough money, electricity, water, all the resources that are funneled through Israel, enough for them to survive so that they don't want to have a big war against Israel, and do absolutely nothing in the West Bank. That was his idea, and it worked for him very well. I was thinking about it today. I don't know when each one of you have been with me in Israel, but if you think about it, once one of my lines when I was guiding would be that my problem with Benjamin Netanyahu is that he offers no future. And I suddenly remember that because it's changed since then. Benjamin Netanyahu never offered any type of solution, any type of clear future of where are we going in relations with Arabs. That was his plan. I always thought of it as something lacking in him, but that was his plan. Don't plan a future, and therefore you won't have any surprises. Turns out his calculation is wrong, because we've just seen what happened on the 7th of October. Just to sum up, Hamas, we've talked about it quite a bit. Hamas is a religious organization, not just religious, it is fundamentalist Muslim in that form, in the sense that it has religion, Islam as the essence. The idea of getting to salvation through Islam is incredibly important. And it holds up the idea of land, right? So in a very, very religious framework, the ends justify the mean. So his end is some sort of salvation, and therefore the means are justifiable, whatever they are. The Hamas is calling for something that would probably be legitimate, independence. If you try and parse out what exactly does the independence that they want sound like, sometimes it includes accepting Israel, sometimes it doesn't. That is part of its fundamentalist viewpoint. And that's how they teach people, that's how they raise people, that's what they are implanting, and they do these actions. The bus that you see blown up is a suicide bombing by Hamas during the Second Intifada. Terrorism against civilians, unlike other Palestinian organizations that target Israeli settlers or target police and military, Hamas has always targeted civilians in Israel. That is what Hamas is doing. Now, Hamas is willing to give up some of its ideals in a diplomatic space. It has changed and it is talked differently. Maybe a little bit of land it's willing to give up. Maybe the type of independence and the way it will get there, it's willing to give up. But it's not willing to give up two very basic ideas. And that's its extremist or fundamentalist Islamic viewpoint over the world. It's not willing to be something else. We cannot push it into some sort of, I don't know, leftist Castro, Fidel kind of Che Guevara. No, they come from a fundamentalist Muslim background. And secondly, it's not willing to give up use of power against Israeli civilians, terrorism. It's not willing to give up that method. It says that that's legitimate. On the other side, we talked about Israel. Israel is a Western democracy. And we like it or not, Western democracy is not one thing. It's a gamut. It's a spectrum. It's lots of different things. And sometimes you can see Israeli democracy is better, more liberal, more conservative, more open, more closed, working better or working worse. But in general, it's a Western democracy. And it offers its people two things. One, prosperity. That's what Israelis want. And second, sense of security. Prosperity, startup nation. Benjamin Netanyahu definitely gave that to Israel. My salary has definitely gone up over the years that he has been in power. I'm very middle class. He's done very well for us. Secondly, sense of security. And this is a picture from the New York Times of a soldier with his girlfriend on the beach. And if you can see behind the soldier, his gun is laying on a trash can. That's what sense of security means. Your soldiers, when they're on leave, they go to the beach, and they forget that they're soldiers. That's a sense of security. The sense of security is gone in Israel in a sense. And it's a promise that the government needs to return, right? And prosperity after such a big event, we're not sure, but this is what Israel offers. But Israel under Benjamin Netanyahu and in big parts of the country is not willing to give up two very important things. The things that they're not willing to give up is one, land and settlements. Israel is not willing and hasn't been willing, definitely since 2009, when the last time there was an attempt to have a diplomatic resolution to the Palestinians. Israel has not offered anything, has said, we do not offer any land, any settlement reduction. And second thing Israel isn't willing to give up is the right to intervene militarily. In order to create on the other side some sort of independence, Israel has to agree that it cannot enter Palestinian areas on its own whim. That's a very hard thing to accept. Sorry. Go back. Yeah. Two things that Israel wasn't willing to give up until today. We'll talk about what is going to be changing next. Okay? Because of this kind of situation, this is not just how I see it, this is, I guess, how most of the Western world sees it. Israel is a democracy and it's a globally recognized country. That's how the world sees it. And it sees Hamas as a totalitarian state and therefore unrecognized. You can agree with it, you can like it or not, that's how the world sees it. And that is the reason that the world is allowing at the moment Israel to attempt to take out Hamas. Literally speaking, take out an organization militarily. That's what Israel is trying to do, and the world is accepting it. Whatever criticism there is, there's still 2 US carrier groups off the coast of Israel. Armaments are coming from the US. Armaments are coming from Europe. The world is accepting this. That Israel will try and take away Hamas. And that's the project that's happening at the moment. Israel is militarily trying to break down Hamas. That is a very ugly thing. I mean, in the sense of how such a thing happens. It's war. War is never nice. War becomes nice only in movies. Only movies. In truth, war is always horrible. Hamas, because of the totalitarian state, it's unacceptable. This is also the reason, one of the reasons, why Israel is getting so much criticism around the world. And Hamas is getting less. The world expects less of a totalitarian state than it does a Western democracy. It's very simple. You put more criticism where you feel things are more similar to you. The Western world puts a lot of criticism on Israel at the moment. On Hamas, it accepts military takeover. That's the big difference between the two. The world accepts military takeover of Hamas because it doesn't see it as legitimate. It sees Israel as legitimate, and therefore it's a direction for a lot of criticism. We can talk later about exactly what criticism and how can we measure the criticism, but that's what's happening at the moment. Okie dokie. Are there any questions until now? Until I've thrown out quite a few ideas and things. Are there any questions? You can unmute yourself if you want, whenever you want. Otherwise, I continue. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about our area. This is kind of the Middle East. Usually when we do Middle East, we'll also throw in North Africa, but just for whatever sake, made it into the smaller Middle East. This is our neighborhood where we're in. And usually the Israeli way of dealing with its neighborhood was accepting that it doesn't want us. And therefore we have to project a lot of power. And generally speaking, throughout the history of Israel from 1948 till now, most of the Middle East didn't want Israel around and slowly got to situations where it accepted Israel. Egypt first, Jordan, Morocco, and now Gulf states as well. Turkey from the beginning. So I'm going to go through a couple of these countries and see what are the different interests here. We'll start with Iran. Let's start with Iran because it's the big adversary. Not just rhetorically, it really is. Iran sees itself as Persia. If you'll ask an Iranian who you are, he wouldn't say Iranian, he would say Persian. It's like Israelis. When you ask Israelis, they'll interchange the term Israeli and Jew, if you're Jewish from Israel, without thinking twice. Iranians see themselves as Persians because Persia was a great empire in the ancient world. You can see on the picture on the left, Iran, whatever is in the pinkish color was the Persian Empire at its height. That's how Iranians see themselves, and that's also why they're the counterpower in the Middle East. They want to be an important regional power, and they imagine themselves as an important regional power. Okay? And they, since the Iranian Revolution, the picture at the bottom right is Ayatollah Khomeini, right? Since the Iranian Revolution, they really are the opposite. Until the revolution, they were part of the Western world. The Shah's regime beforehand was very Western. They moved in that one revolution to be on the other side. If you look at the picture of these people walking by some graffiti, I don't know how well you can see it in your screens, but the graffiti is the seal of the United States, more or less. It's an American eagle holding, on the one hand, a branch of olives that are actually made out of bullets, and on the other hand, the arrows that are supposed to be there, but these are syringes, and above it, a Star of David. Iran sees Israel and the United States as truly the adversary. This is the adversary. In order for it to be able to show strength in the Middle East, to show power, to affect the world like they want to, and I'll just add, it's not a big surprise a country wants to affect the world around it, right? You guys come from the United States. That's very ingrained in the way Americans see the world, constantly affecting the world. And Israel sees it as well. It has a regional and world power to affect. Iranians want to be the same. And in order to do that, you need to either show money or show power. Money they don't have. The world sanctions on it have made their oil money not to be as important as it could be. The other side is military power. And that's the reason that Iran is going for a nuclear power. Does Iran want to have the bomb today or to be in a situation that it can have the bomb tomorrow? That's an open question. But it is absolutely clear Iran wants to have nuclear capabilities in order to be able to extend its power and to protect itself. Right? Nobody's going to attack North Korea. Even though it seems to be something that's possible to do. The fact that they have nuclear weapons stops it. That's what Iran wants. In that sense, Israel, as the main representative of Western power in the Middle East, has always been the foil to Iran's plans. And in the last decade, if you finished a PhD in nuclear physics in the University of Tehran, you look behind your shoulder constantly. You're checking behind your shoulder, looking for drones above you, because Israel has gone on an assassination campaign against Iranian nuclear, what's the word I'm looking for? Scientists working in the nuclear program, and assassinated quite a few. We've succeeded in putting malware into their systems, stealing documents, this and that. Israel's on a campaign to stop Iran from having nuclear weapons, and it's been extremely successful. And Iran has tried to counterattack. Last summer we were in Sri Lanka, but last summer we went to Turkey, and there was the Israeli security services came out with an announcement that Turkey is a dangerous country for Israelis because it has a lot of Iranian tourists there. You shouldn't go. This was after one such assassination. And me and my wife said, okay, we'll change our itinerary. Instead of going to Istanbul, we're going to go into the mountains in the east of Turkey. And we landed in a city called Trabzon on the Black Sea. Actually, if you look here on the map of Iran, you'll see the Black Sea on the northern end of Turkey. Beautiful town. Turns out that is the destination for Iranian tourists in the summer. It was full of Iranians, Saudis, Yemenites in that area. I've lost my point. Why am I telling you this? I don't remember, but first of all, I'll just say that the north of Turkey is amazing, and if you're into hiking, go there. Hiking in the Turkish Alps is stunning, and the people are unbelievably nice. But the point is, back to Iran, right? Iran has attempted a couple of times to kidnap Israelis, to attack Israelis in different places. It has been foiled by Israel. Iran understood it can't succeed. So what does Iran do? Iran cannot attack directly because it is scared. It is deterred. It doesn't want an all-out war. Iran funds in our area 3 major bodies, paramilitary organizations, terrorist organizations, right? One in Lebanon called the Hezbollah. Second, in Yemen, the Houthis. And third, the Hamas in Gaza. We know today that Iran did not give the order for the 7th of October. Now, it's very simple. We would have known by now if they did. And you would have heard it and be all over the news. Iran did not give the order for the 7th of October. Iran definitely trained the Hamas fighters of their elite force, the Nukhba force, to do the things that they did. How to plan an attack, how to keep it secret. These are very technical things. Iran also funded the Hamas. Iran helped smuggle armaments into Gaza to give the Hamas that capability and power. And Iran knew that the Hamas will act when it meets their interests and the Iranian interests, just like Hezbollah will do in the north through Lebanon. And therefore, Iran is very much involved in this conflict. And that is the main reason that there is 2 carrier groups here in the Eastern Mediterranean, American carrier groups, an enormous part of your Navy. 1/6 of the US Navy that's patrolling all the oceans of the world is situated or in the Eastern Mediterranean or next to Iran. It's an enormous task. And that stopped Iran for the moment. The people in Gaza were sure, Hamas, Sinwar, was sure that once he does his attack, after a while, Iran and the Hezbollah come in as well. They didn't. This is the problem with such a weak network. A weak network is based in the end on interests that are true at the moment. At the moment, Iran's interests are not to have an all-out war. Same with Hezbollah. Hamas is yes. So they didn't come and help each other. That's Iran. Next dudes in our neighborhood is Egypt. Incredibly important country. Just like Iran and Persia, Egypt has enormous history and they feel themselves as incredibly important. Both their pharaonic, ancient Egypt past, but also their incredibly important position in the growth of Islam. Incredibly important. And they feel that and they want to wield their power in the area, right? And they have done that for a very long time. Almost 100 million people live there. In Egypt, the important thing to remember about Egypt is that it is poor. This has been true for a very long time. It might be for moments in time less poor than it used to be, but on a global scale, Egypt is a poor country. It has 17% unemployment. The United States, Israel, both of us stand at around 3.5%. 17% unemployment is an enormous burden on a society. Egypt, even more than just the unemployment, Egypt is one of the only countries in the area that still has an enormous part of their population, just around 40% of their population, still live in small villages and farm. No country has that much farmers that is in the modern world. The engine for growth is not in agriculture, and Egypt is not there. Egypt is a poor country, and it's unstable in that sense. In 2014, Arab Spring, you see the picture up above, that's Tahrir Square, the main square in Cairo. They toppled the government of Mubarak like this. It was very quick, very successful. And they tried elections. And the Muslim Brotherhood won. And within a year, a military coup, and until today, the chief of staff, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, is the president. Elections were in Egypt about a week and a half ago. 9 days ago, there were elections. The outcome is going to come out on the 8th of January, and I am going to be a prophet for a second. Mr. Sisi is going to win by 92%. I might be wrong, and it might be 91. But it's not an open and fair elections. It's a very unstable country. Once Israel finished its war of independence, the 1948 war, the Nakba War, Egypt controlled the Gaza Strip. It was under Egyptian control, but Egypt was in the same situation it's today. And they said for two main reasons, we are not incorporating Gaza into Egypt. They never made it part of Egypt. From 48 till 67, it was a territory under their control. That's how they saw it. For two reasons. One, they said, we don't want to incorporate it into Israel. The Palestinians deserve a country of their own. If we incorporate it into Israel, we're taking it away from the Palestinians. We'll keep watch over it for the Palestinians till the day that they will get back their country. That's what they rhetorically said. Second reason, God forbid, they do not want Gaza after 1948. Before 1948, the population of Gaza was 100,000 people. It was a successful town that was connected to the hinterland that today is in Israel. It was a great way to export things from anywhere in the south half of Israel. Once 1948 happened, there's closure between Gaza and Israel. It has no more economic force, and the population goes from 100,000 to 200,000. The extra 100,000 are refugees. A refugee is somebody that left all his belongings and fled for his life. And once he's on the other side, he has nothing. The thing that Egypt does not need is working hands. It has enough poor people of its own. It doesn't want to take the Gazans in because that, in their view, will further destabilize the state. After the war in Ukraine, price of grain went up. Ukraine is one of the world's largest producers of wheat, and Egypt is one of the greatest importers of wheat. Egyptians live off the pita bread, which is a commodity that's its price is given and stated by the state. Wheat is backed by the state in Egypt, just like, you pay gas on average about $3.2 a gallon, which is about just under $1 a liter in the United States. In Israel, we are at $2. That $1 difference is the state backing the price of oil for you guys. Around $2 is what you get in for a liter, which would be about $6.50 a gallon, right? Is what you get in most of Europe. That's the true price of gas, more or less. In Egypt, it's wheat. My point is the Egyptians say, hell no, we will not accept Palestinian refugees. Not in 1948, not in 1967, and not in 2023. They will not accept. A month ago, Benjamin Netanyahu, it came out, he called a few European leaders and asked them to put pressure on the Egyptians to allow the opening of refugee camps across the border from Gaza so that Israel can act in all of the Gazan Strip. Since that moment, the president of Egypt did not talk to the prime minister of Israel. And we know it because 4 days ago, he gave an interview in Al Jazeera, and the president of Egypt said, Benjamin Netanyahu tried to pressure me through European leaders, and such an action, if it continues, will jeopardize the Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Now, I don't know if he really means it, but he's trying to say, I am pissed off. And that's what he's saying to Israel. No way will I take your problem away from you. It's yours. I need stability. And the truth is, he needs the peace treaty with Israel. If he allows Palestinians to go into the north of the Sinai, to go from Gaza into Egypt, these guys aren't going to move there and say, Kumbaya, I have no more claims for land. I feel great now. I'm going to sit quietly. Egypt knows that those refugees that will be moving into Egypt will continue agitating against Israel. And at some certain point, something will happen, and Israel will have to retaliate in sovereign Egyptian land. And Egypt does not want that. So Egypt says, not my issue. We'll give you humanitarian aid. And when somebody decides to rebuild Gaza, believe me, the Egyptians will send lots of workers. Hands that want work, they have a lot. Jordan and Lebanon. Let's start with Jordan because it's easier. This is the king of Jordan, Abdullah bin Hussein. King Abdullah of Jordan is a very interesting character, the whole kingdom of Jordan. It's a very successful state for a country that has absolutely nothing. Somehow it turns out that there's not a drop of oil in that country. They have no access to the Mediterranean. They have no real access to any real trade routes. They are a country with almost nothing. Add to it that about 50% of the population of Jordan are ethnically Palestinian. If it's people who fled in 48 or 67, about 50%, maybe a tiny bit less, are Palestinians. Jordan has been the most critical country against Israel. Very loudly, they criticized Israel. They're the only country to return their ambassador from Israel They returned him. But this king, just like his father, actually not just like his father, this king went to university in the United States. His father went to university in the United Kingdom. And this king, just like his father, is also a military man. They speak unbelievable English. This king was on Jon Stewart's Daily Show about 10 years ago. I love that episode. You can look it up on YouTube. And the king says to Jon Stewart, I don't understand the American FBI. It's a useless organization. The king said, me and 5 other friends took our Harley Davidsons and drove from Alaska into the United States on the Trans-Pacific oil pipeline. There's a road next to it. And he drove all of it on his motorcycle. And he said, I can't believe the FBI, they never stopped us, group of 6 Arabs driving along your pipeline. Yeah? It was a good line from the king. The king is very pragmatic. He speaks very loudly against Israel, his government does, because of their 50% Palestinian majority, but he desperately needs quiet with Israel. So the peace treaty, from him at least, is not jeopardized unless things will go to a place where he cannot control it anymore. He wants stability in this area. He's dying for it. I'll add also that the economic future of Jordan is based on the agreement between Israel and the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia. The plan is to pass oil and gas through Jordan to Israel to get to the Mediterranean Sea and then to sell it to Europe. And that can happen only with quiet. And that's what he's billing for. On the other side, we have Lebanon. And this is a picture of Beirut. And what you see in the front of it used to be the port of the city of Beirut. In Beirut, Lebanon is a stunning country with great resources, beautiful place, and it has been in the worst situation imaginable for the last 45 years, and just getting worse and worse. They're in the worst economic situation that they've ever been in. The Lebanese currency has lost in the last 10 years 98% of its value. You think that you have $1. I don't know, how much does a cup of coffee cost? Probably it costs $2, I guess. If you lose 98% of the value of your money, that means that a cup of coffee doesn't cost $2, it costs 40. Maybe even more because I don't really know math. 98% 2, that's 50. Times 50, then that's $100, even better for my point. A cup of coffee goes from $2 to $100. That's the situation there. It's untenable. And in Jordan, there is a political organization called Hezbollah. This is its leader. Hizb means army of Allah, the army of God. They are Shiites. They are from the south of Lebanon, the area of Lebanon that touches upon Israel. And they have been fighting Israel since the 80s, since Israel invaded the south of Lebanon. It moved slowly from being just a terrorist organization or a counter-organization to Israel. Today, it's a political power. They're a very important political power broker in Lebanon. At the moment, for a year and a half, they've been stopping Parliament from having a new president. Parliament needs to accept or agree to a new president. And for a year and a half, they haven't had a president in Lebanon. Hezbollah has enough political power to stop that from happening. They're working with an acting president for a year and a half. The port of Beirut that doesn't exist in the picture is because Hezbollah stockpiled in the port of Beirut enormous amount of ammonium nitrate, and an incredibly important component in any explosive. And one day, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019, it just blew up. and it took the whole port of Beirut with a whole neighborhood out. And I don't mean shattered glass. Buildings disappeared. Almost 3,000 people ended dying in Beirut. Incredible tragedy. The country of Lebanon is not willing to accept Hezbollah starting a war with Israel. In that sense, Israeli deterrence against Lebanon is working because Hezbollah is not Hamas. They have an enormous arsenal of rockets. They have a very big fighting force. They're very well armed and very well trained. But they're scared of acting towards Israel because they know that their situation as a country will just go down if they go to war now with Israel. An enormous amount of pressure is being put on this guy, on Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, not to start another war with Israel, not to start another front. And that's how it's been until now. The last two groups, the last group I'll talk about is the Gulf states. There's lots of difference between Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, or Saudi Arabia, but there's lots of similarities also. The biggest similarity between all of them is in today's world, they're not supposed to be anything important. And they become unbelievably, sorry, that's me getting stuck, unbelievably important because they found enormous reserves of oil and gas. They're holding the world. And they've become unbelievably important. And unbelievably rich. The picture on the right is the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. You can see how much taller it is than anything else around. When the Empire State Building was built, it was about half as tall, or twice as tall, sorry, as the next tallest building. Look at the Burj Khalifa and look at the buildings around it. It's not twice as tall. It's easily 10 times as tall as anything else. This is the amount of money they have. Incredible amount. And that money used to come from the United States. Until Bush Jr., W, the United States, between 30 to 60% of its oil came from the Gulf states. And that was the US deal with these countries. They'll give them some protection, give them help, and be the clients of their oil. This is after the 70s. Never mind, we don't need to get into the history of OPEC and all that. But that was the situation. Bush and Obama, specifically in 2014, the United States for the first time got to a position that's called energy neutral. Or there's like a hypey words for this. Basically meaning the United States produces more oil and gas than it needs. And it has become energy independent. It stopped buying the oil from this area. There's no such thing as vacuum in the world. It doesn't work like that. The United States takes away that investment in money through oil trade. Somebody else will come in. 45% of China's oil comes from these countries and Iran. China has moved in. Incredibly. And it's not just oil. Today, China is the #1 partner for the GCC, the Gulf countries something, whatever they're called, these 6 countries. It's their single largest trading partner, both in how much oil they buy and in non-oil products. These countries don't make anything, but still China buys every last pencil and sharpener that these guys are making. They've become incredibly important. Move here. The biggest partner is Saudi. All the Gulf states said to themselves, we're too small. We can't really affect the world, right? We're not strong enough. Even if we are rich, we're just not strong enough to push the world around. They give that to Saudi. Saudi is the representative of all of this wealth and money. And it is their vehicle to have influence in the world. Not to say that each little emirate and each little country doesn't have its specific interests. But as the Gulf Countries Cooperation Board, or GCC, whatever they call themselves, Saudi is the main representative. And this is Saudi's ruler at the moment, Mohammed bin Salman, and Xi Jinping of China meeting, right? China is building nonstop around there, but China cannot give one thing that the Saudis and all these countries need. China has replaced the United States as the funder, but it can't give these countries real protection. China can get involved in a country like Djibouti in Africa and give the country of Djibouti protection with 6 warships that it has in the Middle East. But it can't give a country like Saudi, which is unbelievably rich, protection from its arch nemesis, Iran. It just can't. It doesn't have the power. It doesn't matter that China is the biggest country in the world with incredible influence, that it's spent $1 trillion in the last 10 years in the Gulf states. It can't protect them. That's only the United States. The army photo you see at the top there, the soldier and the armored vehicles in the background are all American funded or American trained soldiers with American equipment in Saudi. That's what America is giving them. So even though America can't give them the money, they're giving them the technology and the entry into the group of the really rich states. Really rich countries are countries that have a lot to lose and they need a lot to protect themselves. China, you can see in the map I made on the left, I put up on the left, all the red dots, you don't need to really get into them. These are Chinese ports or Chinese bases or Chinese industrial parks around the Middle East. They're everywhere with tons of money. And this all fits into the picture, the map on the top right. If you see these lines, this is the Chinese program called the Belt and Road Initiative. China is trying to use its power to create trade to flow to China. Today, there's no doubt about it. Trade in the world flows to 2 main places, the United States and Europe. China wants to change that. And it's doing that by investing in these important places. And it's totally successful for them. What is the United States going to do about that? And this is the plan, right? This is a bit from media the last couple of days. Turkey-Israel gas pipeline, once again on the table. Israel says energy company will test press. Mideast war turns spotlight on Arab gas pipeline. This is the idea. If you take all the red lines and they go to a big red dot in the middle of the sea and an orange dot in Cyprus, this is where gas will turn from gas to liquid gas. It sounds like, oh, who gives a rat's whatever about that? But this is incredibly important. Incredibly important. Gas that comes in gas form, you can push through a pipe. But once gas needs to get into systems of countries to be used to create energy, it has to be liquid. I won't explain the reasons for it because I do not really understand. But once it gets into your systems, it's in a liquid form. And then energy will be made out of it. So you need to get that point in space where you turn the gas into liquid gas. The Saudis and the Gulf states are not doing it in their end. because to send it in pipes from there to Europe is just not feasible. So they put it on ships. The idea is to make a pipeline. It will go into the Mediterranean. There it will be made into liquid and then into a new pipeline called the East Med Pipeline. Point of the whole thing is, in order for that to happen, it goes through Jordan and Israel. That's the basic trade in the trilateral agreement called the Abraham Accords. Just a moment. I didn't want this one yet. The Abraham Accords. If we take China and the Gulf countries, right? The way for the United States to stop the Chinese power here is to offer these countries, Saudi and all the Gulf states, military power to be able to protect themselves. They have enough money to buy almost everything they want. And the almost is the most important thing. There's only one really effective system that knows to shoot rockets out of the air. There's only one really tested, effective system that shoots ballistic missiles out of the air. Iron Dome and Chetz, both joint Israeli-American missiles. So much of the technology in planes, in ships, in so many platforms, spyware, all of these things are in the realm of the really good friends of the United States. Germany can buy it. France can buy it. Britain can buy it. Japan can buy it. Israel can buy it. That's about it. This is the top group. NATO, Japan, Australia, and Israel. We're the only ones that can buy this top-notch stuff. That is what these countries want. They want to get to be able to buy that. Israel needs to approve that. So that is the Abraham Accords between Israel, the Gulf states, and Saudi with the United States. And that will allow Israel to get gas coming in from the Gulf states, will allow Israel to be part of a regional power, part of the Middle East, and more importantly, it will create some sort of stability here. That's the plan. It was working with the basic idea that we don't need to talk to the Palestinians. What does the United States want to do here? The fact that it brought so much military power is to stop Iran from entering into the game. It also to help Israel win its very specific war. But on the third hand, what the United States is doing is showcasing to the Gulf states and to Saudi what it means to be a really good friend of the United States. The United States got up on the 7th of October and came to assist its closest ally in the Middle East. Not talking, but came over here with incredible force. That is what they're trying to sell to Saudi and the Gulf countries in order to counter China. That's what the Abraham Accords are for. And the Abraham Accords got to a place where they said, we're willing to do it without any progress around the Palestinians. The 7th of October is the Palestinians saying, hell no, you will not forget us. And today, all the Gulf countries have kept their ambassadors in Israel, have still good relations. If you want to fly out of Israel at the moment, the 2 Israeli air companies are doing it, and Fly Dubai, Emirates. The only countries that are still flying to Israel are the new friends that came around 1 year ago, the Arab countries. The Arab countries are all saying to Israel, we accept what you're doing to Hamas, and we accept the price it's taking from Palestinians. Why? Because we want this deal. We want to get the military so that we can be strong enough to protect ourselves, stand against Iran, bring Israel into the fold, increase trade, and have America on our side. That's the whole point. And that's the Abraham Accords. This is Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump, and the foreign minister of Bahrain and the UAE is signing the Abraham Accords. The whole idea of it is to do this out of the Palestinians. And for a long time, these countries, the Gulf countries and Saudis said, okay, we're willing to do it without the Palestinians. Today, you will hear them all say, we're willing to normalize with Israel. We're willing to have a full peace with Israel. We're willing to sell Israel oil. We're willing to make a direct pipeline to Israel. We're willing to do 101 things. We are willing to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. Believe me, each one of these countries, you know, the general public stereotype of the Gulf countries is they're rich and they don't care about anything. That's the public perception. If you just boil it down, very, very rich countries, nobody really understands what do they do in the world except buy money and sell oil and buy Mercedes or whatever cars. They are dying to change their situation. They know that oil is slowly going to die out. They want to take a stronger space in the world, one that's based on trade. And therefore, they want to deal with Israel and the United States. But now they're all saying, we understood. It's impossible to do this without the Palestinians. I'm going back to my last point, and then I'll open it up for questions, guys. The three pictures on the right, you have Israeli peace treaties with different people, right? With Palestinians, with Egypt, with Jordan, with people who we thought as absolute enemies. These are all black swan events. Nobody believed it anymore. I was, just before I came to the clinic here to do the Zoom, I wanted to take with me a book from home that I really should have brought. It's a album, the war album, made for the 6-Day War. It's a Israeli publication, came out in 1967 after the 6-Day War. And I wanted to show you the amount of caricatures there were of the then president of Egypt. Israel in 1967 was sure that never can we talk to this horrible, horrible person. And we have peace with Egypt. We have peace, in a sense, with Palestinians. We made a first accord. We have with Jordan. And they're all being stable. Black swan events. Now, to jump from there and say, can we have peace with the Hamas, with Gaza, after what happened to us, after the 7th of October, after the murder of 1,400 people, 350 of them in their own homes, 280 children murdered in cold blood, the youngest child to be murdered, 10 months old, 17 people walking on the beach were gunned down. With these people, can we ever feel safe enough to make peace with them? It's crazy. That's the big picture here on the screen now. The little guy with the white hair on the left, that's David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister. A wonderful guy in lots of meanings, a very interesting character. He's putting his hand on an older European-looking gentleman who's laughing. And also David Ben-Gurion is telling something funny. The picture is made in 1962. This is 17 years after the end of the Holocaust. And the guy that David Ben-Gurion is talking to was in the Hitler Youth, not as a member, but as like a camp leader, group leader. He was a group leader in the Hitler Youth. His name is Konrad Adenauer, and he was the president of Germany. And they're sitting down, and David Ben-Gurion is telling a joke to the leader of Germany after the Holocaust, with whatever happened on the 7th of October and Hamas did, which is unbelievable. It's not even close to the Holocaust. if David Ben Gurion could sit with Konrad Adenauer, when somebody asks me, can Israel sit with terrorists like the Hamas? Can we ever make peace and feel comfortable with them? I say yes. We can. Tomorrow, probably not. But over time, definitely. That's my little point here. I'll share with you a couple of things again, but I wanted to open up for questions that people have. I felt good rambling on, but that was a long ramble. Any questions, guys, gals? Just unmute yourself and throw them at me. Or viewpoints, questions, anything you'd like. Okie dokie. Yeah. Nanette.
I have a quick question, but first, thank you. That was amazing. My quick question was just a random thing. What were the syringes in that graffiti? What is
that
this
photo?
all about? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they were rockets.
You thought they're rockets?
Yeah.
Let me see. Pictures. Is it here?
There it is.
Here. Open. Oh, come on. And I opened a small one. This is wonderful. I have a picture of this
Yes.
also larger. Anyway, the picture that you're seeing here. Why can't I find it in the? Okay, never mind. The picture that you see here, you can see the United States and all the things that make the United States a adversary for Iran. On the one hand, it's seen as very militant, and that's why the eagle is holding a strand of bullets. It has bullets around it, but it's also everything that's horrible about Western society. It's promiscuous, and it's based around drugs and around sexual promiscuity and having no morals. So on the one hand, military, and on the other hand, no morals. You can even see next to this guy's leg a marijuana leaf, right?
Okay.
Elon. Sorry, I'll just add this photo was made about 2 years ago when, is it 2 years ago? Yeah, it should, whatever, I don't remember exactly when. Iran made a exhibition of anti-American art at the 50th year or 40th, 50th, whatever, year anniversary to the takeover of the American embassy. And that's one of a whole series of these type of graffitis. Anyway.
So nobody is saying anything in the United States about the carrier ships off of Israel. I think that's fascinating that it's not in the news.
It's interesting that it's in the news very much here in Israel. It's very much the way that Israelis see the protection that the United States is giving. There's 2 carrier groups in the Mediterranean that were sent in, and one of them moved to the Gulf, and it's there mainly to stop attacks from Yemen. I don't know if you've been hearing this, but Yemen has been attacking Israel, which is like, what the heck? Where's this coming from? The first time I heard about it, I was like, what? It's also so far away, right? They're actually attacking with ballistic missiles, with unmanned airplanes, a lot of Iranian technology. And the ships in the Gulf are stopping it, American, British, and French ships. And so the Yemenites, Houthi organization is attacking Israel as part of this coalition of organizations backed by Iran who are anti-Israel, anti-Western, anti-Arab countries joining Western powers. That didn't work for the Houthis very well because it's actually very easy to shoot down a rocket or an unmanned plane or a drone that's flying 1,700 kilometers, which is over 1,000 miles. You just see it. It's easy. So they've started targeting ships that are owned by Israelis going through the Gulf of Suez and trying to attack them. It's not very easy because in international shipping, you'll find out that it doesn't matter where the ship is from and whose it's owned. It's written that it's coming from the Cayman Islands, from Bermuda, Western Antilles, all kind of like places like, what are you talking about? So it's very hard to find out. They've tried, made a little bit of damage. That didn't work for them to make enough of a sound on the world stage. So now they've been attacking any ship that has on its manifest that will stop at the port of Haifa, including the second largest shipping company in the world, MCN, the French-owned company, right? And now we have a French mission in the Red Sea, an American and a British and a Chinese, all at the same time there, seeing how can they stop the Houthis, because this is stopping world trade. A ship that's going to go now, like MCN, that's about, I would say it's about 20-25% of all the world's shipping. If it's trying to sell something from China and wants to get to Europe, it goes through the Suez Canal. If it doesn't, it goes around Africa, adding easily 2 to 3 weeks. A week in a ship like that costs $1 million. Just for the ship.
They were also saying the insurance has gone sky high for those ships.
Insurance has gone sky high, and a lot of ships therefore have canceled Israel from their roster. So, you know, the big thing now in the Israeli TV, not the big one, but another one of the issues is how much more expensive it will be to order stuff from Amazon now in Israel. And it's going to go up.
Hey, Elon.
Yeah.
That was fabulous. Fabulous for the context that, you know, I feel like it's a luxury in a way, although it doesn't reflect well on us as Americans, that we do not have to think about things in the way that you presented them. And I feel like I'm going to ask you, you know, what percentage of the Israeli population do you think has this sort of context that you brought to us today, to set the you know, what's happening in the world against? Because I didn't have a clue. You've offered it in a really probably, you know, simple for us to digest in this hour and a half, but so important. And it just brought to the fore this complex web, global web that I could not have put that together myself. Really grateful for it. I would hear more from you.
I was just going to add the same thing, Elon, because we're not getting that kind of cohesive, interactive, international presentation. And I would also like to hear, because it was a lot to digest.
I'm sure. So first of all, I've been sitting with a friend who's a marketing manager, and he's kind of like taking me under his wing. Seriously taking me under his wing. I'm so useless when I have to do something like this. And we've been sitting, and what I want to do is, first of all, I want to start doing some sort of newsletter. And I've been working on it. Hopefully in a day or two, it's going to come out. I'll also add stuff from these videos, and if you'd want to access these videos, you'll have them up there. And I was thinking of maybe doing once every week, 2 weeks, I don't know exactly what the time frame, to do some sort of update videos, like a shorter kind of crunch of news and what's happening. What I'll do is I'll send a newsletter hopefully tomorrow, if not the day after. I add on it a form with some questionnaires about what times would be good, if people would be interested. I'd love it if you'd add. If I'll just also say this, if anybody here would like to, you know, give me some pointers, I'd love to hear from you more. Would want to have a short Zoom call or a WhatsApp conversation, just for me to try and see how to build these type of things, then I'd love that as well. That's number one.
Alon,
Yeah.
I sent you an email, but I don't know if you ever got it. I got all my information from Suzanne. I
Oh,
never got
really?
anything directly from you.
I think for some reason maybe your emails aren't getting to me because they go into spam for some reason because I haven't gotten. I'll check it in a second, but I don't think I. Usually, I'm not very conscientious in answering people on time. I'm pretty horrible in that. But lately, I've been told by enough people I'm very horrible in that I've been working on myself. So I checked my email and I don't think I'm missing you. I'm doing this as we are talking. Sorry to everybody for doing this, but Lynn, could you just give me your email?
Yes, LJO, S is in Sam, B is in book,
SBH@AOL.
correct.com.
Okay. I'm going to send you an email once we finish, and then
Okay.
answer me, and then I'll put you smack into the all the whatever.
Thank you.
Emailing things. My viewpoint, as you were asking, Karen. First of all, thank you very much. Yeah.
We thank you. We thank you.
Yes,
Thank you guys. Really.
And I hope you will do many more because,
yes.
you know, like one of them said, we're not getting the same information here as you provide to us.
And if we did get it, it's splintered. You're making it
Yeah.
cohesive and interactive. It's so much better
Thank you so
presentation.
much. That's exactly what I was trying to do. This is, so first of all, some of you know me better, worse, how well you know me, but I've always been involved in these kind of issues. I studied history, comparative religions. I'm very involved in a variety of organizations. I worked in my past, before I became a tour guide, I was sure I'm going to change the world for good. I worked for Amnesty International. I had some contacts and worked a bit with UN bodies. I worked with African refugees. I thought I'll save the world. In the end, it didn't work out. That the world isn't being saved yet, and it turns out that these aren't places that make me flourish. So I kind of moved, but I'm still very, very active and very much a political person involved. Therefore, what I have to give you is from studying. I've been sitting and reading and listening to podcasts and videos and books and articles and all of this and collecting that together. And I've also, there is in everything I say, there is a little bit of a slant because this is my view of things. It's based on my personal history. On the one hand, I'm the son of a Holocaust survivor. My father himself, he was born in 1936. He went through it himself, right? And that's one sort of imprint. On the other hand, I come from a family that's very secular. So I grew up with Judaism being inherently true about who I am. Like my dad always said, I know I'm Jewish. I don't need to light candles for it. So I come from that world. Add to it the fact that my mother comes from a long line of diehard communists until the 70s. After the 70s, they kind of came to Israel and changed their whole worldview, but they were diehard communists, even very important people in the Communist Party in Romania. So I have that with me. I went to the army. I'm a naval intelligence officer. And after the army service, when I was supposed to be sent to oversee in 2000 the building of installation of something in a base in Gaza, I said to the army, I don't go to Gaza. I object to Israel's presence there. At that time, Israel still ruled directly over Gaza. And I went to jail for 3 weeks for objecting, what's the word for not accepting a legal order, right? So, these are the things that kind of give all of this together. Plus being an Israeli, living here, loving this place with all of its faults. So I don't know, that's why it comes like this. Israelis, just like everybody else, we are moved by lots of things. I would say today, more Israelis have my kind of view than had before the 7th of October. And just like before the 7th of October, they won't admit to it. I was at my CPA yesterday, and we had a 45-minute political conversation. I love her. She's great. She's also a very good CPA, but she's really is a fun person to talk to. And whatever argument we had, turns out we agreed. Once we kind of explained ourselves, we agreed. And she's really centrist Israeli. I also say that sometimes people don't need to agree with something in order to move in that direction. We a lot of time when we talk about politics and we talk about international relations, it's very easy for us to think by putting everything into one person. What would an average person think about this? How does this thing? But people work also as groups, and they have a totally different dynamic. A political person can move things because a group gives it power, even if the individual in the group doesn't say that. I don't know if I made any point with that, but never mind. Nanette, you're going to ask something?
Yeah, I was thinking about knowing nothing about money and marketing. Obviously, you would like to have an income, and somebody should help you figure out to make this something that, you know, obviously we've given you donations and so on, but that's not sustainable. And maybe there's somebody in, you know, your connections, because I think it's okay to monetize it in some way. I mean, we would love to share, I mean, with our whole congregation, a lot of these things, not like congregations are sort of, you know, huge sources of money, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's got to be a way to subscribe or figure something out like that. And I think the other thing I would say is everybody has a slant. Your slant is open, but every person you listen to, whatever organization they're part of, one expects a slant. I mean, that's just, we all are in this post whatever world where we don't believe in objective truth. We believe that everybody has a slant, and either it's a slant we agree with, or at least it's an open slant. And I don't think that's a deficit. I think that's, you know, it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah, thank you. I really am.
You should contact the Jewish Federation in New York, and they also might have openings at different synagogues that they could present for you for discussion and lectures.
Perfect. I'll add that to my list. I've made today sorry, that was just half a burp, and that's still from a hummus I ate today for lunch. A really, really good hummus that I ate for lunch with a friend. This friend, he's what do you call it? A VC, whatever. He's like high up in a big startup tech company. I mean, he's their marketing dude. And he's a very good friend. And we sat over hummus, and we made a list of where should I try and push and how to market. And he sat with me on building some sort of survey for everybody who was on these Zooms, and also through that to try and solicit extra connections. I really am going to try it. So if you want, my guiding stopped totally, right? So I have absolutely no income from there, except Gate One, this company that some of you met me through.
Yes.
And I work with. Unbelievably, they've decided to give to all their guides in Israel, and we're all freelancers. We don't work for the company. All the freelance guides in Israel, I think it's 32 people, a end of year bonus.
Wow.
And that's added on to like an end of year bonus. So that actually comes out to quite a bit of money, and that's kind of holding me at the moment. I am getting partial unemployment, and that's holding me. But I also, not to brag, but I'm very middle class. I come from very middle class families, and my wife is, even upper middle class, let's put it. So we're comfortable. We've taken a lot of money and made it into investments, and that's holding us pretty well. And my dream at the moment is to acknowledge my incredible privilege to be this guy that I am. And I'm going to try and put my time into writing and into doing lectures. So if later on you'd like to have a short conversation with me, I'll pitch some ideas and I want to hear your ideas. I would love it. I'll send this kind of survey and you can just write there. I think I asked there a question if you would be interested in having a conversation. And then we can just set up some time, have ideas for other series of lectures, maybe continuing also on this political view and whatever. And I'd love to hear it. And I'm so moved also that you're interested.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have to go, Ilan. I'm so sorry. I love listening to you.
Thank you, dear, so much.
too.
Wonderful, guys. Thank you so much.
We will be in touch by email. Promise.
Fantastic.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so moved. See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Suzanne, I'll talk to you tonight.